This is the Torino Film Festival, the 42nd edition. This is Fred, and I'm Cristiana Palmieri. I'm in conversation with Kyle Hausmann-Stokes, the director of My Dead Friend ZOE. Good afternoon, almost good afternoon, Kyle.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here. It's great to meet you.
Welcome to Torino and welcome to Fred's studio. Your film, My Dead Friend ZOE, is your directorial debut.
It is.
And it's a compelling story about a U.S. Afghanistan veteran who navigates life after war. And I believe it's not easy to tell complicated veteran stories. It implies many different layers. And the story follows Merit and chronicles her journey to readapting to life after the death of her best friend. What inspired you to tell this story?
Yeah, the story is very autobiographical. Almost everything in it is true. I didn't see my dead friend, not literally, but I had my reasons why to manifest what I was going through in terms of my own post-war experience into a character. But yeah, I've been working in the veteran space, telling veteran stories for almost 15 years, talking about mental health and suicide and homelessness and military sexual harassment for the Veterans Affairs. It's like the big national department in the U.S. But making a feature film has always been my dream. It's what I've been working towards my whole career. And it wasn't until COVID, when we were all stuck in our homes, that I think I finally had the time and also found the courage to maybe start to tell my own story for a change. And I knew that I wanted it to be a comedy, a dark comedy, so that it would be accessible to people. But I also knew that I wanted it to have just as much gravity and levity. And just like filmmakers do, I kind of combined so many elements in my favorite films. It's a little bit like Fight Club. It's a little bit like American Werewolf in Paris. And yeah, that was the origin of it. I wrote it once. I wrote it twice. I wrote it a fourth time, workshopped it for 2 years, eventually made a short film. Making a Hollywood film is almost impossible, especially as a first-time director.
Yeah.
So the short film did very well, and this was kind of a Cinderella story. It doesn't happen very often, but make the short film, showed it to the right people, won some awards, had the feature ready to go, and we were off to the races.
Yeah, job done.
Yeah.
Kyle, you said that it's highly autobiographical. So what's the process in a film like this? Drawing upon your own life experience to shape the characters. How difficult, painful, complicated it is to do that?
Incredibly painful and incredibly cathartic. I think it took me at least a year to start to talk about my experience in Iraq, but then also my experience losing friends back home. That was the beginning of it, but I've always been resistant to it, which is ironic because this film is all about talking about your feelings and talking about your trauma. So Merit's resistance in the film, and this is no spoiler, has to go to group therapy. It's a court-ordered thing. Her resistance is my resistance, and her dead friend Zoe, who's funny and annoying and getting in the way, was a manifestation for me of my survivor's guilt. I'm here, my friends aren't. And it would prevent me from socializing. It would prevent me from engaging in relationships, So it was difficult to decide when is this going to be fully me. But also what's so beautiful about film is that it's so collaborative. So I created the containers for these characters, but then the actors filled them up. And Sonequa and Natalie and Ed and Morgan and Utkarsh and Gloria, I was blessed with the most incredible cast. And so I was there for them as a reference. I'm like the IP, the source material. And so if they had questions, great, let's talk about it. But if they wanted to do something that was closer to their personal experience, I was all for it. I wanted it to be, it's a team sport.
Yeah. And you mentioned something that is actually, I noticed that watching your film, you really did very well in striking a very difficult balance between drama and comedy. Because the film definitely tells a story which is traumatic and is sad and full of pain, but with a very light touch. Yeah. And this is not very easy to achieve.
You're right. That was honestly the first principle for me in making this film. It's almost like the first idea that came to me. And as a veteran, as a combat veteran, as a person who sees every military film and the very few veteran films that are out there, there just wasn't one that was right, that got it right. And sometimes I feel like maybe the best art comes out of conflict, or what do they say? Invention is the mother of necessity, right?
Yeah.
And so I knew that it needed to be funny. And we soldiers, we veterans, we're funny. We are funny. We laugh. We're in crazy situations. And this has been depicted in films,
Yeah.
But humor is the only thing that you have that belongs to you, that no one can take away from you. And
It's a survival kit.
it's survival. And this sounds crazy, but my year in Iraq, I was there for the surge, very bad time in 2007, 2008. I didn't want to be there. Most of us don't want to be there, but we don't get to have that choice, right? And anyway, there's good and bad. And it was the worst year of my life, but it was also the best year of my life.
Yeah.
It's the conflict.
Kind of a paradoxical.
And when you're so close to the edge, when you're so close to like you could die at any moment, everything is so much more heightened. And then the people that you're around, even though it sounds like a cliche, oh, it's all about the man and woman next to you, it's true. It really is. And then you come back from war and that bond doesn't exist anywhere else. And that's where the next mission comes, is to learn, now you've got this big hole and you need to learn how to fill it. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And speaking of which, there is another very interesting angle in your film that I would like to explore with you. And correct me if I'm wrong or you disagree with me. The mystery surrounding Zoe's death is told in a way that, in my opinion, parallels the impact of PTSD on the mind and the body. So Merit is stuck. She can't move on because she's unable to come to terms to what happened after she came back. So is this parallel that I saw in your film real, or was just my mind?
You're correct. The mind, PTSD, any trauma. I mean, it's so great that we have language for it now. PTSD.
Yeah.
Speaking about at least English, it used to be called shell shock. Different words, combat stress. Now, the psychology, the DSM, they have technical names for it. But yes, it manifests like this. And I think there's also so much comfort in knowing that what you're going through is not unique to you. You could have PTSD from a car accident that you were in, and I have PTSD from this war that I was in, but we have similar symptoms, similar experiences. And so even though the film is art and it's an interpretation, I did make sure to infuse it with what's technically true when somebody is going through PTSD. So flashbacks, reminders, just like little things. I wanted it to feel authentic to anybody who's been through that.
Yes. One last thing, very quickly, because we're running out of time. Your film also confronts us with a sort of paradox. The military is seen as a means of social redemption, creating cohesion and offering personal development opportunities that might be otherwise out of reach for some segment of the population. Yet, at the same time, they have devastating effects on mental health. How can you reconcile this?
Yeah. I don't think you can, or maybe it's the practice we have as human beings, and in terms of in our society, creating systems that allow people from disadvantaged origins to find a leg up, but without the danger of you might die or you might have mental issues for the rest of your life. It's I don't know how to answer that question, but I do appreciate you saying that, because I have to say, I'm an American. I'm here in Italy. I'm having a great time, but I was concerned about how the international audience would receive a film that they might just write off as, oh, this is yet another American propaganda exceptionalism. Yeah. It's told by a soldier. All of us soldiers are a bunch of knuckleheads, and you know what? Sometimes that's true. Some people are, but just like in Italy or in Europe or any country, like the people is not necessarily their government, and a soldier is not their president or their general. And that's there's nuance there, and I really appreciate you acknowledging that.
And we really want to promote that angle of
Yes,
your film.
yes,
It deserves it.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kyle.
Thank you.
Kyle Hausmann-Stokes at the Torino Film Festival, presenting his film, My Dead Friend Zoe, in conversation with Fred, the festival insider. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Fred.